you talked about sort of the number of dispositions. And I think a lot of people think, and I could be wrong in this too, is that so the judge is the boss, the ALJ is the boss, and there's no boss above the ALJ. My understanding is there are bosses above the ALJ, and I don't know what their titles are. I don't know if there's like a chief ALJ somewhere, a regional, and then a national puts down like certain expectations. And I'm curious what those expectations were and how they're communicated, if you're comfortable talking about that. Number of dispositions per month, is it depending on how long you've been there or where you work, or how does that all work?
Welcome to the Evans Disability Podcast. We hope to be your definitive guide through the Social Security Administration landscape. I'm Peter Evans, your host and managing partner at Evans Disability, a law firm that handles disability cases throughout the United States. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to mention a special resource for our listeners. Click the link below to receive a free SSA Disability Guide from Evans Disability. This guide is packed with details on SSA disability programs, expert tips for winning your case, and sample questions from actual disability hearings. Join me as I sit down with special guests, including experienced lawyers, our extremely well-trained staff, and even a former Social Security law judge. If you find our content useful, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on our latest discussions. I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
And then during the pandemic, it just really switched almost overnight to where let's do phone hearings and then MS Team video hearings. I always say Zoom, but really MS Teams. And then like it just became widely accepted, and it's continued to be accepted by the hearings office. Does that seem about right? They didn't used to do a ton of phone hearings before that?
Not very often. Not very often. It was rare. And I still remember, pre-pandemic that there would be, sometimes issues with, transportation. There might be issues with the equipment. If we were doing what they would call the video teleconference, that was always a challenge for everybody to do, which was like you're on a big television screen in a hearing room doing it. And, so that would be technical difficulty there. But once we transitioned, and it was just about overnight, because we needed to do hearings and we needed to figure out very fast how to do those hearings. And I don't think Teams was around in the beginning. I think it was phone. Don't you remember that? And it was just, we were doing the best that we could given the situation, and we forged ahead, all of us. And it was a team effort. I'm not just saying in Social Security, with the representatives too. You want your clients, you want their cases to be heard as well. And so it's all of us working together to make this hearing go forward. Now I think we still have technical issues, but that's okay. That's part of the process. And now I'm sure you're this way too. We work through them. We navigate through them and we hold the hearing. I think too, it's, I don't know how you feel about this, but I think it's a wonderful development that we have different ways to do a hearing now. Because for some people, getting to a hearing room, not just because of, it could be agoraphobia. It could be a physical issue that's preventing them from getting in a vehicle and getting to the hearing. But there are myriad reasons that people are challenged to get from home to a hearing room. And this allows them to appear by phone or by video. Now we have these alternatives available. Of course, you can always appear in person, but I'm grateful that we have these options for claimants, aren't you?
Oh, I'm extremely grateful, especially, Tony, I don't know how many years ago, but a long time ago, they used to have remote hearing sites to go in person, and the judges would travel. The judges would travel to, even for people who live, and, because you're familiar with this region, people who lived in Vancouver, Washington, they would host in-person hearings in Vancouver. Or if you lived at the coast, they would host in-person hearings for people at the coast, like, Astoria, Oregon was a remote hearing sites, what they call them, Bend. But I don't think they do that anymore. Like, at least I haven't seen that. And now they make folks, hey, we'll reimburse you, but come drive 4 hours to get here. Um, and that's a horrendous drive for anyone who's suffering physically. Um, and it's not just that. It's like, well, welcome to downtown, whatever, Seattle, Tacoma, Portland, Los Angeles, and good luck. You got to find parking. You got to get in and out, and then up and go through security, which is like airport security. And then now let's do a hearing where you're at your best and you can testify. Versus I'm at home in the comfort of my own room. I don't have to worry about driving. I can, be comfortable, and do it that way. And there's a lot of other reasons. I have a whole video about why I think phone hearings are valuable. I do think sometimes in-person hearings are valuable too. And it kind of depends on a case-by-case basis, but I am a big believer in phone hearings. I think it's the best for the claimants right now. But let me ask you this. When you were in your first year or two as a Social Security judge, other than technology, what did you find the most challenging, like that first few hearings out of the gate?
I was thinking about that today as I was just mentally preparing for our talk because I thought I want to be able to our discussion to be of value to those who are listening. And I thought about my first hearing and I was terrified. I'd been a state administrative law judge, but I hadn't been a Social Security federal administrative law judge. And I remember that first hearing was I got up early in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I was thinking of it like many claimants do, right? And I had to really focus in and say, this is not about me. This is about serving the claimant. This is their day. And I'm there to create an environment, make a decision, shepherd them through this process, right? And I've thought about that moment many times, because that is what I felt my mission was as an ALJ. And so those first hearings, after the first one, I became much more comfortable as, okay, this is good. But I would say, there's a learning curve. And again, this is where we rely upon, it's not just other ALJs we're relying upon. It's a process, like just like as we prepare for hearings to represent claimants, there's an entire team behind the scenes, getting the records, communicating with us and advising us of changes and helping us with scheduling. I mean, it's a team effort. Even though we are the ones who appear at the hearing, it is me and the entire Evans disability team behind me, right? And it's the same thing with Social Security. It was relying on other judges. So say I had questions about the law or the application of the law to a certain set of facts, I might turn to an ALJ colleague. But then there was just so much support too within the office environment to get my orders out in a timely fashion or to make sure that I was properly scheduled or that I didn't miss a hearing and that sort of thing. So, like anything new, there's a learning curve. And with the support of the team, I managed to learn my job and I became very comfortable and always enjoyed it. Always enjoyed my work. And I still even now, coming to work with you and talking with claimants, it just was it was like there was a ease that came over me when I was talking with the claimants because I felt that it was a familiar experience for me to work with people. And I just look forward to being able to represent them and still shepherd them through the process.
During your first 6 to 12 months as an ALJ, you talked about the team and going to other ALJs.
Mhm.
Are you assigned a mentor is the first question, and then do you get to pick which office you want to work at?
Yes, you're assigned a mentor. And that's again, like the folks you go through ALJ school with, the mentor is a person that remains a very special person in your life. and so I fortunately got a great mentor, and she was just she was an excellent judge, generous, very like there was a generosity of spirit in her that I appreciated very much. And so anyway, we worked together. I had a mentor, and there's a certain, we'll say, goal of number of dispositions that the agency would, prefer you schedule a certain number of hearings every month, but you build up to that.
Right.
And that I think that's very smart to build up to that so you're comfortable, so you're learning and you're able to focus your energy, and not be rushed through you don't want to be rushed through this process. You want to do it right. So I had a mentor. As far as where you go, well, there's all kinds of places you can go throughout the country. And it depends. Some people are very selective and they'll say, there's one or two cities that they're willing to go to. And sometimes they get that city and sometimes they don't. I think it depends on availability, the number, if there's an office available, if there's a business need for that person. And then some of us, it, I wanted this job. And so I said, I'll go where you need me to go. And so I started out, oh gosh, where was I? Missouri? Was I in Missouri? I'm trying to remember now because I wasn't there for long. Although they were very welcoming, I was there about 6 months, and then, of course, my family was back in Oregon, and so I was fortunate that after this initial period, at that time, I think it was about 6 months, you can transfer or become available for transfer, and so very shortly after I became available for transfer, I was able to get back to Oregon.
Did you first go to the Portland office or the Eugene office? Do you
The
recall?
Eugene the Eugene office. So I was at the Eugene office, and then I was at then later it went to the Portland office. And that might be I feel like that's where we met. Was it? Because I know you do Eugene hearings, but was it Eugene? It was one of those 2 places for sure.
I think we might have met, in Eugene, but probably more. I appeared more in front of you in Portland for sure. I think I did a couple hearings in Eugene, and then quite a few more with you in Portland. Um, and then after Portland, you transferred to California.
Exactly. So it was during the pandemic, and I have a family member in San Diego. So I was going down there quite a bit because, of course, we were remote working. Everyone was doing that. And are a special needs individual. And so it was a time that it was important for me to be there. And so I was going down there quite a bit and thought that it was the best thing to do to transfer and be a bit closer to them. And so I was in Moreno Valley. But because of remote work, the gift of remote work, I have family in Oregon and I have family down there. And so I was able to go between both places, which is very helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it's great. You can do hearings from Eugene or hearings in California, and go from there. That's really great.
absolutely.
You brought up something, and I wanted to chat with you about it. Is that you talked about sort of the number of dispositions, and I think a lot of people think, and I could be wrong in this too, is that so the judge is the boss, the ALJ is the boss, and there's no boss above the ALJ. My understanding is there are bosses above the ALJ, and I don't know what their titles are. I don't know if there's like a chief ALJ somewhere, a regional, and then a national who puts down like certain expectations. And I'm curious what those expectations were, and how they're communicated. If you're comfortable talking about that, number of dispositions per month. Is it depending on how long you've been there, or where you work, or how does that all work?
Well, when I first came on board, there was a dispositional, I don't know. So I want to say it was a suggestion. So there was a suggested number of hearings that one would schedule in a month. Okay. And that was the ideal. And it was, as far as I know, nationwide.
Yeah.
And then you build up to that, which is what should be done. So I think that's very well orchestrated. The program, I really think that they did a fantastic job with us, bringing us on board, training us initially, and then building up, having a mentor. Just very, very well done. Then once you're up and running after a certain period of time, the number always in those 12 and a half years, for me, it always remained about the same. There's this dispositional goal of, well, I don't even know if it was a dispositional goal. It seemed it started as that, but then turned to, well, it's really the number of hearings you're going to request. So it seemed to move from the number of dispositions per year or per month to the number of hearings requested. And maybe that happened because I think it varies. I think some offices, they call them receipts. Some offices don't have a lot of cases to be heard. And so you might be, say, scheduling 50 hearings per month, but maybe there are only enough cases that you will be scheduled for 45. But it seemed like the goal remained the same of scheduling a certain number of cases. And I do think it depends on the office. I think there's some I don't know if it's a hard and fast rule. Every office is the same, but it seemed pretty consistent to me over the years.
What is the most amount of hearings as an ALJ you've ever done in a month?
I like
That
doing
heard of being done, maybe. Let's do that. What's the most amount of hearings you've ever heard of being done in a month?